and hope people showed up, but you never be sure if they showed up. You put things on Zoom, you pretty much can guarantee people are going to show up. So it's interesting.
Hey,
So,
could we make sure that the recording starts now? I think we have critical mass.
hi, Asha. How are you? Oh, she came, she went.
I'm here. I'm well. How are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Senator, further to that discussion about how convenient Facebook meeting, or I'm sorry, Zoom meetings are
Yes.
relative to in-person meetings. That was a topic of discussion the other night on the Budget and Governmental Affairs Committee. And one of the things that we had discussed is the possibility of doing a resolution so as to get the governor's existing order extended and made permanent. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Which order? There are endless orders.
Well,
Jim, let's not get into business now because we're about to start
Okay.
the meeting. So,
all right.
Jesus, are we all set with the recording and live streaming?
We are all set. I'm
Awesome.
Brendan, but we're all set.
Thank you, Brendan. All right, so welcome everybody to the April 14th, 2021 full board meeting of Manhattan Community Board 6. My name is Kyle Thide and I am the chair of CB6. This meeting is being called to order at 7:04 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant Secretary Matt Bondi, District Manager Jesus Perez, and Community Associate Brendan Burr. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, CB6 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you're still having technical difficulty, please click the chat icon and relay your difficulty. Third, the chat function should not be used for CB6 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information such as an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Next, when a member is given the floor to speak, I as the chair will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Next, we are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting, so please keep questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. And finally, to the members of the public, if you wish to give remarks during the public session and have not already registered by filling out the form on the CB6 website ahead of time, you can register to speak in the public session by using the Q&A feature of Zoom and posting your name, affiliation, and what specific topic you wish to speak about. This needs to be done by 7:15 p.m., so you have about 10 minutes. So the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office, was posted online, and appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. So board members, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, and as we go through the agenda, if you are not on mute, please mute. I hear some feedback. Appreciate it. All right, so seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Now we'll move on to the Assistant Secretary, Matt Bondi.
Thank you, everybody. We'll take attendance now by roll call, and board members, you can unmute yourselves and answer present when your name is called. Kyle Thide.
Present.
Asia Badi.
Present. Present. Did you hear me?
I heard, yes, thank you. Neil Barkley.
Present.
Thank you. Martin Barrett.
Present.
Elvie Barosa.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Barenbaum.
Present.
I am here. Claire Brennan.
I am here too.
Thank you. Jim Collins.
Here.
Dan Devine.
Present.
Beatrice Disman.
Present.
Jeannie D'Onofrio.
Present.
Rich Eggers.
Present.
Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Andrew Gross. Andrew Gross. Okay, Adam Harkey.
Present.
Thank you. Molly Hollister. Molly will be here later. Paige Judge.
Present.
Thank you. Yusuf Khalad. Yusuf? Okay, John Keller.
Present.
Thank you. Abigail Cruzmark. Abigail? Okay, Anton Malmer.
Present.
Kavitha Matthew.
Here.
Okay. Sandra McKee.
Here.
Wells Magali.
Present.
Richard Mintz.
Present.
Phil Napolitano.
Present.
Thank you. Rajesh Nayar.
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe. Kevin? Thought I saw you.
Present.
Okay. Reshma Patel. Reshma? Okay, Matt Roberts.
Present.
Gene Santoro.
Here.
Thank you. Frank Scala. Frank? Okay, Lawrence Scher.
Here.
Ann Seligman.
Present.
Lou Sapersky. I saw Lou earlier. Seema, okay, Seema Shah. Seema is absent tonight. That's why I'm taking the minutes. Okay, Sean Sherman.
Here.
Sandro Sherrod.
Present.
Letty Simon.
Present.
Okay, Susan Steinberg.
Present.
Anju Suresh.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Thompson.
Present.
Karen Vanderdonk. Karen? Karen? Okay, Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Ronnie White.
Present.
And Claude Winfield.
Present.
All right, thank you for indulging me. Sorry for being a little slow there, but we do have a quorum. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So I've asked all of our elected officials to send over their reports ahead of time so that we can compile them. You can find all of the reports that were submitted on the CB6 website. The link to the reports was disseminated ahead of time to all board members and the general public, and for your convenience can now be found in the chat. So I will now call on each of the elected officials who have RSVP'd so that they can take questions from CB6 members and the public about their pre-submitted reports. Each elected will have 1 minute to field questions. If there are no questions, we will move on to the next elected official on our list. If an elected official has a time-sensitive matter to report on that didn't make it into their pre-submitted report, they will have 3 minutes to do so. So the first up is Senator Krueger. I think you're on mute.
Hi
You go.
there. Okay, so I am open to answer your questions, and hello to everyone.
So we have a couple of questions for you, Senator. Thank you for joining us. The first is we have Lou. Lou, you have the floor.
Excuse me, I was just checking to make sure that I've been recorded as present.
You're recorded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lou. Not a question for you, Senator, but so we'll move on to Ann. Ann, go ahead.
Actually, not really a question either. I just wanted to thank you and Harvey Epstein and Brad Hoylman for the marijuana reform bill that you guys passed. I am so proud of the work you did and that you held out to get one that has all the appropriate social and racial justice elements that you have been working for years. So, thank you very much for getting a good bill through on this and many other things.
Thank you, Ann. And I'm really proud of the bill we all passed. It's being touted as the strongest in the nation and the model that other states should be following. So now we just have to get it done right here. And I couldn't have done it without the help of all of my colleagues. And of course, Harvey and Brad were fabulous supporters. So thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ann. We'll move on to Claire. You have the floor.
Thanks, Kyle. I just want to piggyback on what Ann said. I'm really commend this legislation. And I remember when you came in a few years back to talk about it. And I thought that you were just like incredibly smart and informed. And I was excited to have you leading the charge here. So congratulations again. As the chair of the Business Affairs and Licensing Committee of this board, I just wonder, is it going to be a similar process? Are we going to see dispensaries come forth and kind of explain their operations to us, and then we're going to write motions of support, or what is our board's involvement moving forward?
So it is designed to look a bit like SLA. So that applications for licenses will go through the state cannabis organization or authority, but then definitely support in the community will be a reason why someone might successfully move through for a license. And there are similar rules where you can't be within 500 feet of a school or religious institution, which is sometimes a challenge in our densely populated district. But I think we will expect to see, dispensaries and perhaps a larger number of medical dispensaries, although I have to say, my district is pretty well repped in medical dispensaries, considering how few there are statewide. But it's going to be like an 18-month process before we see all the rollout of the licenses, because first we have to write regulations, then we have to go through the review process, and people can comment on the regulations before they're finalized. And then we get into the actual authorizing of licenses for different functions in the enormously diverse business world from seed to sale.
All right. I see no more questions for you, Senator Krueger. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Senator Hoylman. Senator Hoylman, thank you for joining us tonight.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. So are there any questions for Senator Hoylman? All right.
I got off easy. I just want to, if I could just add again, a thanks to Senator Krueger for her leadership, also on cannabis legalization, but on the entire state budget. What a remarkable document that we passed. It's so many important provisions, Kyle, for small businesses, for the arts, for renters, for undocumented New Yorkers who needed support, and much more. So thank you, Senator Krueger. You led a fight that is really being acknowledged as a seminal one for the future of the state. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much again, Senator, for joining us. We're also pleased to be joined by Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So are there any questions for the Congresswoman? All right, I'm not seeing any questions. I don't know if you have any remarks you'd like to make.
Well, I think that building on the good work of our elected officials on the state level, led by the finance chair, our own Senator Liz Krueger, we passed a $1.9 trillion package that brought over $100 billion to the great city of New York. This is direct aid that over $356 billion went through the committee that I chair now on oversight. 12.9 billion specifically unrestricted to the state and 5.9 billion to the city, totally unrestricted. And very importantly, were the direct grants to people, over $22 billion in direct payments of $1,400. Those checks, the third stage is going out this week, stimulus checks, and then of course the unemployment subsidy, and roughly 6.5 billion for the MTA. And they contacted me. They were very, very grateful, and they are doing renovations to some of the entrances. I have several in my district. If the community board has any specific upgrades that they need in the subway system, let me know and I'll work with them. Very importantly, in our district, so many people couldn't pay their rent, and across this whole city. And we got well over $1 billion building on top of 35 billion that we got earlier to help people stay in their homes. And we cut child poverty in half, roughly $8 billion through expansion of the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. We gave the most money I've ever seen in my life for education. And I'm a former teacher and I'm thrilled about it. We have put 125 billion into Title I, which Liz and Brad knows is the most important educational formula, moving the money to the neediest districts. And there was so much money that when I joined others in asking the mayor to expand 3K, going down to 3-year-olds, it is now citywide throughout Manhattan and all of the 5 boroughs. This is a real boon to the education of the children. And I would say the parents too, many of whom gave up their jobs to go home to tutor the children. It's been a very, very rough year. So that expansion was critically important. We also are working now on a $2.2 trillion infrastructure package, which I hope includes the extension of the 2nd Avenue subway up to 125th Street. We intend to build it full scale. Also, it will have an entrance into the LIRR Queens Manhattan connector going into Grand Central, which is important for the Queens district of my area of my district. And I'm pushing high-speed rail between New York and Boston. We don't have any in our country. We deserve it. And economists say nothing would grow our economy more. So we are hoping that would happen. And I think we may get the full electrification, which we're pushing for the postal fleet, to get them off of fossil fuels and moving to a clean environment. So a lot of good things are happening. Today, I chaired and reported out DC statehood, granting them the right to vote, which they've been denied all these years. Certainly a civil rights move, especially when you compare it to what's happening in Georgia, where they're constricting the right to vote. So there's a great deal of happiness. It makes me very happy to see so many old friends and hopefully make new ones. And thank you, Kyle, for recognizing me. And again, if anybody has any questions on any of this, I'd be delighted to answer.
Fantastic. We actually do have a couple questions for you. So first up, Larry, you have the floor.
Congresswoman Maloney, thank you for the work that you've done to keep the 2nd Avenue subway project going. As you know, between phase 1 and phase 2, there was a demobilization. I hope that with regard to phase 3, which affects this district especially, we'll have planning that will now be initiated so that there will not be another demobilization when phase 2 is finished, and that the crews that are working right now on building phase 2 can just simply move over to phase 3 without having to be rehired or searched for. And I think that that would be good planning.
I think that's an excellent idea. I wish I'd thought of it. Thank you for reminding me. And gratefully, the bill is still open. I just talked to the chairman on the floor on the other aspects we were talking about, and I will get that request in. And I'll tell you, the regional plan helped all of us, because it was a community effort to build a Second Avenue subway. And it was a difficult time when we were building it. I'm surprised I got reelected because all the complaints were about the air and the noise and everything going on. But it's now it's the best subway in the whole country. When I get depressed, I go and ride the subway. You know, it's beautiful. There's music, there's art. I mean, it's state of the art. But we should get planning money in. And I don't know whether you want to just give it to the MTA or you want to give it to the regional plan and the MTA. And any other ideas you have, I'll try to get it into the bill. I'm serious. And get it to my office. I believe I have Taylor, my deputy chief of staff, is on the call in the chat with you. And let's go to work on that. We still have time to get that in, and I'm going to work very hard to make that happen. Excellent idea. Community boards are serving the community and telling the Congresswoman what to do. So thank you. I'll get right on it.
And Taylor's contact information is in the chat, so please go there if you'd like to continue the conversation. Anne, you have the floor now. Anne, I think we're having some audio issues. Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have been on the Land Use and Waterfront Committee for all the time I've been on the community board. Our biggest issue with that, and there are a lot, is frankly the UN and our inability to literally get anything past the UN. And so I just, as we are talking about expanding green infrastructure, I hope you will keep in mind funding for infrastructure that could basically bypass the UN so that we can close the link on the Greenway between 41st and 54th, I guess it is, that will otherwise never happen.
Okay, how much do you think it would cost? What's your estimate? Do you have any idea?
Well, if Liz Kruger is still here, she probably knows better than I do.
I don't know how much it'll cost, but I'll get some.
I don't know the cost either. We can start to ask some questions. It's been a long time since we had these discussions last.
Okay, I'll see if I can get some seed money starting. The whole East Side Esplanade started when Liz Kruger and I were approached by the community board. Again, it was a community board idea. They had repaired the road, and they had built out over the water and had these stanchions for the temporary road that they had. And the community board came in from 6 and 8 and said, save those stanchions, let's build on them and build an esplanade. Well, well over $1 billion later, we now have an esplanade. It gets better every year. It's a community effort, a top priority of mine, and I co-chair a committee with Ben Kalos to work on that. And Liz and C. Wright, everybody's contributed to it. But that 41 to 51st Street is a sore, and we got to figure out what we're going to do with it. I would welcome any suggestions, but I am going to go to bat for it. I think at the very least I can get some planning money in there with the Parks Department and the city to come forward with a plan. And as you know, if you don't have a plan, you don't get anything done. So if we could get a plan of how to address it and get a hold on of how much it would cost, we can push forward on it. But I'm pretty sure I can get planning money in to understand. Pardon me?
We did get pretty far on the plan in coordinating with the city. So I'm going to get you all the materials immediately.
Okay, so you don't think we need planning? We just need seed money.
Well, we'll take it all, but we really did get quite a.
Well, if you don't need a plan, we don't have to pay for it. Let's just go. Let's just go build it. Okay, I'll work on that tomorrow.
This is Brian Van Nieuwenhoven. I'm the former chair of the budget committee, and this was an issue that we had encountered as part of our yearly district needs requests. The de Blasio administration made a big splash a couple of years ago proposing an infill of the Esplanade from roughly the 60s down to the mid 30s. And the entire phased plan was about $100 million, including the esplanade over the stanchions that you mentioned. That is a key part of the plan, and thank you for being prepared with that. Anything we can do to move that forward. I don't know if it was DDC or EDC that was in charge of that, but it is sort of in the city planning stages, but I don't think that they are ready to contract it out yet. Anything that could be done to move that along would be great. There's an old SOW with the UN that the Cuomo administration had negotiated that seems to have gone nowhere. And anything that could just get the money up front and fund everything and take care of all the UN's security concerns would be fantastic and a big gift to the East Side.
Okay. I've got two big ideas for the Esplanade. I can only carry one in this budget. So Kyle, if you will figure out from the community board what the top priority is, I'll get one in, either the 41 to 51 or the 60s to the 30s. I can't carry both of them. I can't carry that, two major projects in one area.
So actually, I want to turn it over. We have a couple of hands raised up, so I just want to keep in mind, everyone, that we have other reports and people who have to make it to meetings.
But seriously, I will get one of them in. So Kyle, just tell me which one.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it to the land use chair right now because I think he has something to say on this.
Okay.
Adam, go ahead.
I mean, selfishly, if I had to pick, I would say the UN gap, but you know, what do I know?
Why don't you have a vote?
Oh, just a correction. The 100 million is from 51st to 60th. We already broke ground on it. They are likely to be finishing the first phase early next year, and the whole thing from 60th down to 51st will be done in 2023, 2024. So as far as I understand, below 51st is not currently funded and part of the UN EGAP.
I'm going to agree with Ben. We don't need the money for the northern part because thanks to the city and Ben and Carolyn, that has really been committed. We need the rest of it going south. I just didn't have a dollar number on what that was projected at now.
Okay, if anybody can give me as much information as they can on it, I will either die or get it in the budget, one or the other. So that means I don't have any intention of dying, so I'm going to get it in the budget. Okay.
Appreciate it. I'm going to go to one member of the public first, and then I'm going to move on to the next elected official. So you have the floor. Sean on?
Hello?
Yep, Sean, can you hear us?
Hi, how are you? My name is Sean. I'm a resident of CB6, and it's a lot of exciting news coming from our elected officials. For Senator Maloney, I was wondering if there is any additional funding or any movement on Gateway, because as we know, Gateway is actually the most vital link that affects our country. And secondly, I'm very concerned with all this money being given to New York City and New York State governments without without any regards to reform, specifically with the Department of Education affecting New York City and the MTA. So if you could have any comments on Gateway, I'd appreciate it. And if you could keep in mind that we should not be brooming our problems with the corruption in our government with this money under a rug.
Well, Gateway is a priority of the entire New York delegation. It is critical to the economic revival of our city. It is a priority, and it is in the budget in some form. It is not in my district, so I can't tell you the exact money amount that's in it, but I know it's in the package. And as far as the reform, we passed a big package, HR 1, for reform of the federal government. And so I'm working on getting that through. But you got to rely on your local people. I see Ben Kalos and Senator Liz to address the corruption on the local level. I am in Washington now, and I'm here every week usually. So that's where I'm working. I'm working on the corruption in government and any waste of taxpayers' money. That's part of the jurisdiction of my committee, is overseeing waste, fraud, and abuse, one of our top goals. And we have a number of investigations going on how COVID relief money was spent or not spent properly. But I really can't comment on what they're doing locally to reform. I'm sure they're working on it. Maybe Senator Liz and Councilmember Ben want to respond to that particular question on local problems. I do want to thank Ben Kalos very much. The education money, the city gets, or rather the federal government sends the money to the city council and they decide how to spend it. One of the reasons I ran for Congress was that they were cutting aid to the city of New York. And as a member of the city council, all we could do was cut. But when this large amount of money came down, Ben went to work immediately trying to get it expanded, which we did. So we did it together. You couldn't have done it without the money, but he worked the local part and got the 3K all through Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and Staten Island. And I think as a former teacher, they say the earlier you start the education, the more of a bright future that child has, more than advanced education, more than anything. This early education is vital. So I want to publicly thank him for his effort on that. And I was thrilled to join him and bringing the money home. I must tell you, every time I think about that package we passed, it's like my heart is beating. I asked my office today to research how much money we got last year in Title I. I wouldn't be surprised if it was less than what we got this year. It's just an amazing amount of money, $125 billion for Title I, the most important educational formula going into our public schools. I've always watched education, always been tuned into it as a former teacher. I've never seen so much come to our city to help our young people. It's really thrilling. And we've got to make sure that it's spent wisely and that it levels the playing field and levels the opportunities for our children and gives them the very best start. It's very thrilling to have been part of, really the chair of the committee that sent the money back to New York City. I've never had such a thrill in my life politically to see that much money come back to the city. But now I've got to work on the next package and get more money. So everybody down here in the city council and state and everything has to make sure that money, and community boards, you have a lot to say about how the money's spent. And you've got to watch that and make sure it's spent wisely and well to help our people. But still, I was so used to writing bills and not having them go anywhere. All I can say is elections have consequences, and having a Democratic president, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic House has made all the difference in our ability to deliver the $1.9 trillion, which resulted in over $100 million for New York City. And we're working on now a $2.2 trillion, which we hope and we're determined to get through the House and the Senate. Anyway, I yield back. It's been a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you.
Keep the money coming to us and we'll figure out a way to spend it.
You figure it out to spend it, okay? All right.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And if anyone else
Trying to find my
muted, please. Thank you. But just again, want to thank you, Congresswoman. And if anyone else has any further questions, Taylor did put her contact information in the chat. So feel free to continue the conversation there. All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, again. Now moving on, we have Assembly Member Harvey Epstein. Assembly Member.
Thank you, Kyle, and Ramadan Mubarak for anyone who's celebrating Ramadan that started just a few days ago. You've heard a lot about the great work people have been doing in Albany after we passed the budget. I don't know, we had time to get that on our report last week, but with the leadership of Senator Krueger and Senator Hoylman, we had an amazing state budget that raised revenue and funded our fundamental needs. And I'm happy to take any questions that people have about, the small business relief or the tenant rent relief, as well as the money we did for foundation aid and pre-K and 3K. A lot of great things in our budget this year. And so we should all be proud of what New York did. And Kyle, if there's a question, I'm happy to do it. And I want to thank my Congresswoman who represents me so well in Washington. Thank you, Congresswoman Maloney, for all you do for all of us and the amazing leadership you've shown. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but we made it through, and I'm excited to be on the other side of the budget. Looking forward to doing some amazing legislation for the last couple weeks of session.
All right, thank you so much, Assemblymember, for your own leadership. I don't see any questions for you, so you have the night off. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Councilmember Kalos.
Thank you. I love the new quick format. I want to start with a huge thank you for our Congresswoman. Mayor de Blasio said he would give us universal pre-K in 2014. We didn't get it on the Upper East Side till 2017. We had to fight for it. The mayor promised universal 3K by 2021. We didn't get it in Manhattan below 96th Street or in Central Harlem, and we had to fight for it. He said he would do it if we got money from Washington. Congressmember Carol Maloney brought that money back, and we were able to get the mayor to promise 3K for all, and we have it. It's funded. I want to thank our state Senate Finance Chair who helped bring more money down for the educate schools than ever before. Now we have a problem. We need to find the seats. I've been reaching out to a lot of the public schools. They are all freaking out because with the 6-foot rule or the 3-foot rule, they may not have the locations we need to add 3K, let alone pre-K. So what we need is 10,000 square feet anywhere. Empty Dwayne Reeds are perfect. We need landlords. Some of you may be landlords because you're on a co-op or condo, but we need landlords, and we need to be and community-based organizations. So I'm hoping you can partner with our office. If you email education@benkalos.com, we want to work with you to actually find as many locations as possible so that we can actually go back to DOE and SCA and say, here's the locations, here's the CBOs. The applications are due actually in May. Also, if you're a parent like me with a 3-year-old, go onto the My Schools portal. And even though you still can't apply, at least they can see your profile. Another key thing we're working on is, of course, the Esplanade, where we are now up to $874 million in funding from 51st Street all the way up through East Harlem. And we do need to fill the UNE gap because right now we've got from 60th down to 53rd. We've gotten all the way up to 38th, and now we've got that last piece left. So with the Congress member, I'm sure we can get it done. And last but not least, anyone see the new robot dog? $74,000, the price of a social worker. A robot dog can be yours too. And I've got legislation to say that those should not be weaponized. We're also hoping to expand it even further and say you can't even use UAVs or Predator drones. The NYPD should, we need to invest in our communities, not buy more military equipment. And I just don't want to live in a Black Mirror episode. That's my report.
Yeah, that was actually the focus of an episode of Black Mirror. Neil, you have a question? You have the floor.
Hi, Councilman Kalos. I just wanted to ask you a question about the crime, the increase of crime and attacks against Asian Americans. And I was just wondering, what your thoughts were on that, and if there's anything that can be done with the NYPD, or also, I guess, let's say maybe encouraging the district attorneys to pick these cases up and try them as hate crimes. Each day we hear of another attack. Today there was one on 72nd and Lexington. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, because it's a big issue. It's a scary issue.
We have to take on hate any place we see it. I joined Congressmember Carol Maloney and countless others at Union Square to speak out against violence against the AAPI community. And we have to continue speaking out. We're also, before this, I was at a rally around better funding AAPI organizations here in the city. There's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of hate. A lot of it was perpetrated by the president at the time and how he referred to a pandemic that we're all fighting. But it was there beforehand, and it's still going to be here. And ultimately, we really need to do more to support the community. There's myths of a model. People call people who are Asian models, but the reality is that if you look at Asian Americans in the AAPI community, they're actually living in poverty. They're most people who are low income and need the most services. So we really need to do a lot more for the community. And we need to do a lot more in education and social emotional learning in our schools, which we will be able to do thanks to the Congress member and Senator Krueger, and support the AAPI community.
Great, thank you. And then final question, Jim, you have the floor.
Council member, you had said that you needed 10,000 square feet. I take it that's in the aggregate?
It's 2,000 square feet per classroom. Minimum for a pre-K center is 4 classrooms. So that's 8,000, and they need 2,000 overhead. If you get us 20,000, it has to be on the first floor, second floor. It must be ADA accessible. So it needs to have at least 1 elevator.
Right.
And you are all hereby deputized. If you are real estate professionals, we can't give you a commission, but what you will get is a 3K right in your neighborhood where you need one.
And you will underwrite the insurance?
Depending on it, if it is a shell, SCA comes in, we take over the space, we become tenants, we do a 5 or 10-year lease. If it is a community-based organization, they need to fill out their response to the RFP. We can give a copy of the RFP, and the city generally pays around $12,000 to $14,000 a student, and they can operate childcare for 1 and 2s, and then the 3s and 4s the city would pay for.
And religious institutions?
We love religious
participate?
institutions. Faith-based institutions are eligible. We will only pay for the part of the day that is secular. And
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong about the religious institutions. I know other folks have expertise on this too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I see no further questions for the council member. So thank you once again for joining us tonight, Councilmember Kalos. All right, next up, we have Assemblymember Quart's office. I believe Rebecca is here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Rebecca from Assemblymember Dan Court's office. Based off of the report I submitted last week, nothing really has changed. We are just recovering from the state budget that was passed last week, still reeling over the legalization of recreational marijuana, and also the assembly member is just very happy, particularly about ending indefinite solitary confinement, which was passed about 2 weeks prior to the budget, so it may have been overshadowed, but that's something he has been fighting for years now. We are very happy to see it have been passed. If anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns, I will put my contact information in the chat, and please feel free to reach out to me on anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think we have a question from Manu, but I think they just dropped off.
Okay. I'll put my information down below if they need to email it.
Thank you so much. All right, and I see no further questions. All right, next up, we have Assemblymember Gottfried's office. Is Brees here? All right, not seeing him. Is Councilmember Rivera's office here? Katie?
Yeah, I'm here. Just one update from the newsletter that was sent last week. This week, Mayor de Blasio announced increases in funding for senior services, and they've announced 25 different target neighborhoods, including Community Board 6. So there will be an RFP for a new senior center or NORC in the district coming up.
All right, thank you, Katie. Are there any questions for Councilmember Rivera's office? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Katie. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have Pat from Councilmember Power's office.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone. I have no updates since the report that we submitted, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pat. Are there any questions for Councilmember Power's office? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Pat. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
All right. And last but not least, we have Zena from the Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Zena. I am the outreach coordinator within the Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence. And I just want to share with you all that we have family justice centers in each borough, that services anybody experiencing domestic and gender-based violence. As of now, the offices are open telephonically, so call to receive assistance, but also we are in the planning phases of opening it up hopefully next month. And then we do have those rare circumstances where clients cannot get help over the phone. So we do have the Manhattan Family Justice Center that is open 2 days out of the week for physical appointments, but those appointments still have to be made over the phone. I will put in all that contact information in the chat so everybody has it, and then I'll share my email if anybody has any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Zena. Are there any questions for Zena? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, Zena. If you can send us your information, we'll be sure to share that with the rest of the board. Next up, we have Michael from the New York City Comptroller's Office.
Hi everyone, hope everyone had a great April. I just have one quick update. We are having an informational session on the renewal of our collaboration with CUNY for our fellowship program. We had one in the fall until April 1st and it went extremely well, so we're renewing it for the summer. The fellowship dates will run from June 7th to November 19th, and it'll be 4 days a week, 24. Oh, sorry, my son is freaking out. It's bedtime. And it's $21 an hour for the pay. So I'll drop the link for the event tomorrow. Unfortunately, because of blackout rules for city elections, I can't send a flyer around, but I can drop the link for you. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. And say hi to the baby for us.
I will.
All right, are there any questions for the New York City Comptroller's Office? All right, seeing none. Next up, Brian, do we have the borough president with us now, or should we postpone the report till later?
The borough president will be joining today.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just move along with the agenda. Right. Jesus, has anyone signed up to speak in the public session?
Yes, we have about 5 people who have signed up. The first one is Alexis Thompson, who is speaking, who is actually from Northside Center for Child Development and Project Hope. They want to speak about Project Hope. Alexis, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Jesus, I think you went mute.
All right, is everyone able to hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. My name says Ariana Holmes. That's my colleague. She was actually pulled into a separate meeting tonight, and I am here taking her place. So I will now share my screen with you and explain to you about our organization, New York Project Hope. So give me one moment, and I will do that.
Alexis, actually, we weren't told that you needed to share screen or anything.
Oh, okay. No, I can speak verbatim. It's fine. I don't need to share a screen. I just figured that maybe it was better. I have a presentation, but if not, that's okay. I can just explain verbally. That's no problem at all.
Okay, you've got 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. So New York Project Hope is a FEMA-funded program that was instated to help individuals throughout New York State and New York City cope with the challenging effects of COVID-19. We are a crisis counseling response to the pandemic to help New Yorkers recover. So we have an emotional support helpline, which I will also drop in the chat, which is 844-863-9314. Again, that is our emotional support helpline to assist with any emotional issues that you may be having, whether it be mental health, whether it be housing security, anything that is detrimental to your mental health caused by this pandemic. We are here to help you with that. Some of the other stresses that have been caused by COVID-19 are extra anxiousness, anxiety, feelings of isolation, feelings of being scared, angry, irritable, and sad. So our website is www.nyprojecthope.org. And we are here to talk, here to listen, and here to support. We can help you connect to various services, whichever you may need, whether that be food banks for food security, housing assistance, rental assistance, financial planning, healthcare, health needs, childcare, education, immigration needs, and much more. So our mission at Northside Center for Child Development is the organization that is hosting and that has received the grant for New York Project Hope. And our mission at Northside is to provide children and families with the support that they need to overcome adversity, thrive, and our higher quality outcome-driven behavioral and mental health care services that are provided. Northside Center is located in East Harlem, New York. Thank you so much, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your evening. I will also be dropping a flyer and my personal contact information, my crisis counseling information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexis. All right, Jesus, let's move on to the next public speaker.
All right, the next speaker is Mr. Sean Vakill, who is a resident of Community District 6, and he wishes to speak on municipal service delivery in the district. Mr. Vakill, give me 1 second. All right, Mr. Vakill, you now have the floor for 3 minutes.
Hi, guys. I'll be brief, as I promised Kyle I would be. I'm still concerned with the lack of services from just the Department of Sanitation and the filthy streets throughout our entire district, to the continued closure of, may I remind everyone, it's been over 1 year now that we have 4 New York Public Library branches that are closed in our district alone. And it's the out of control construction projects that never seem to come to an end, and the amount of time it takes to resolve these concerns with people abusing and not following the laws as required by their permits. It's unfathomable. It took me almost 5 months to get a street paved, and begging my city councilman's office to get this done. All in all, the project took 10 months to have a simple street finished being paved. This is indicative of all of the problems in front of us, and I appreciate the positive tone of the overall meeting, but at the same time, the city and the state are failing us as a community as a whole, and I'm sorry to be the only voice that is here to speak up and represent this, but I think I might be the only actual citizen here and not politician on here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sean. Let's move on to our next public speaker, Jesus.
All right, the next speaker is Margaret McGillicott, who is a resident of Community District 6 and wishes to speak on racial justice. 1 second. All right, it looks like Ms. McGillicott is using an older version of Zoom, so let's come back to her in a few minutes. It's not letting me enable her mic. So let's come back to her in a few minutes while we sort this out. We'll move on to Andrew Lawrence, who is a resident of Community District 6 and wishes to speak on the creation of a new city park on 23rd Street. All right, Mr. Lawrence, is also having a similar issue. So let's go on to the next speaker, and then we'll sort out those two speaking. Charlie Puente, who is a resident of Community District 6 and wishes to speak on the creation of a new park on the Solo site, as well as matters of parking in Tudor City. All right, Mr. Puente, you have 3 minutes. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you kindly. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, I guess park creation is a bit of a theme. So I'm located in the Tudor City area, been here about a decade. Specifically, I don't know if there are plans to do so, but if there are not, the city should consider purchasing the Solo lot. This is a large lot between 38th and 41st Street near the UN. It's between the FDR and First Avenue. It's sat empty for pretty much the entirety of the time I've been in the neighborhood. Now, this has the potential to be a space similar to Bryant Park. This could be a much needed green area for a very residential community. I think it'd be the perfect place to gather for 4th of July fireworks, and it could form a center for year-round community events, as well as make property values for our area much higher than they currently are. It would also increase foot traffic for local businesses, which along First Avenue is very needed. I've been staring at it the entire pandemic. There's everything from birds nesting in there. You can see the bedrock. The thing is a dead ringer for Central Park. And I think that would be a much better use for the land instead of another glittering high rise that we all have to put up with, but few of us can use. For the second point, parking in Tudor City has been an issue, especially since outdoor dining has been made a thing. Specifically, there's a large mobile home size structure that the Tudor City Steakhouse put up that is taking up most of parking on 43rd Street that is available to the public. They've got plenty of outdoor seating along the sidewalk, including in its cul-de-sac that they could use without depriving us of already limited parking spaces. And since the bikes were installed along 43rd Street in front of the Ford Foundation, it eliminated diplomatic parking, forcing those diplomats to then move into more public parking in Tudor City. If the bicycles could either be relocated or, more street side parking spaces could be created along the hill and on 41st between 1st and 2nd, or on 43rd between 1st and 2nd, that would be awesome. Or if there would be a way that parking in Tudor City could be eligible only to permit holding residents, I feel like that would also do a lot to alleviate those problems.
All right, thank you very much, Charlie. Jesus, were we able to figure out the issues with our other public speakers?
We're about to see. Let's go to Margaret McElligott, who once again is a resident of Community District 6 and wishes to speak on the topic of racial justice. Ms. McElligott, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thanks very much, Jesus, for bringing that out. And I'd just like to pass my sincere thanks to the CB6 board members, staff, and elected representatives who do such great work all year round, and will demonstrate my thanks by speaking quickly with 3 points related to racial justice. First, just although the policing reform package recently passed by City Council is a good first step, I requested to speak because I've been deeply disturbed by NYPD's recent use of no-knock warrants in Queens in ways that seem extremely disturbing. It doesn't matter that it's not in our neighborhood. It shouldn't happen anywhere in our city with our taxpayer dollars. It's good to see that there might be an investigation, and thanks to Ben Kalos for what he just mentioned about the robot dogs. Speaking of taxpayer dollars, for a second point, I hope you'll forgive me, but I wanted to follow up on Representative Maloney's mention of DC statehood, where 712,000 citizens collectively pay more in federal taxes than the residents of 22 other states, where there are more Americans than in Wyoming or Vermont, and where citizens serve in the military, have jobs, and own businesses, a place that should be a state with equal representation in Congress. I've previously lived in DC, and I can tell you that it's just an absolutely demoralizing experience when you get your driver's license. And that's the moment when you realize you've just lost your right to representation. Based on DC's demographics as a historically Black city and recent history for state control, DC statehood is a basic racial justice issue, and the lack of congressional representation is an embarrassment for our democracy that we should fix. So I'd encourage my friends and neighbors in here to join in supporting your friends down 95 for the push. And then finally, for fellow white neighbors near me in Turtle Bay or anywhere in our community who share concerns about racial justice, I've shared that I've personally found the organization Showing Up for Racial Justice very helpful, whether for learning more about my role in interrupting racism or in building the skills for engaging in my workplace and with my friends and family. You can learn more at showingupforracialjustice.org or at surgenyc.com. That's surjnyc.com. We've got a small group working particularly in our neighborhood, but of course, there's folks all over the city that you can get matched up with. Thanks so much, and thanks again to everyone in CB6 for all the great things you do with resolutions and the agendas all year round. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Margaret. And I actually also encourage you to attend our public safety meeting, which is tomorrow night, because we do focus on a lot of those issues there as well. So thank you.
All right, and our final speaker is Andrew Lawrence, who once again is a resident of Community District 6 and wishes to speak on the topic of a creation of a new city park on 23rd Street. Mr. Lawrence, you now have the floor for 3 minutes.
Good evening. Andrew Lawrence. I've lived in the Stuyvesant Town Peter Community Village since 1968. Our community needs more parkland. As you know, we are the lowest served in the 5 boroughs. Therefore, Community Board 6 should immediately establish the service road on the south side of East 23rd Street between First Avenue and the FDR as a New York City park. The park will extend north from the Peter Cooper boundary fence to the southern curb of 23rd Street proper, then east to the FDR. The park will be approximately 55 to 60 feet wide and cover over 550 feet in length. I had initially proposed the idea to CB6 several months ago and gotten the report back that more than one committee chair had expressed interest. City ownership of the area has been clarified, and we now can proceed with formalization of the concept. As we emerge from the COVID pandemic, we now have an opportunity to re-envision street space and recenter on people. We can mirror Barcelona and Madrid, Madison Square and Avenue B, and the 34th Avenue undertaking in Queens. We can use the best of those concepts and set the agenda for ourselves and the rest of the city. On the macro level, NOAA, the Ocean and Atmospheric folks, they report that despite pandemic reduction in greenhouse gas emissions last year, atmospheric carbon dioxide has reached its highest level in the last 3.6 million years. Closer to home, remember the Con Ed internal document uncovered during the repowering of the 14th Street plant that called our area the most heavily asthma impacted location in the city, equal to the South Bronx? A FOIL request last week revealed the unredacted and hidden report that's unfolding in front of the courts. The major issue being poured over is alienation, a state-level consideration that was ignored as the ESCR, the Astor-Levy, and Stive Cove parks went under the development cloud. I would like to present a fuller case to the proper committee why we should transfer this useless for transportation street to parkland and community accessibility. You have read all the books, reports, documents, heard the kids and the Gretas of this world. No new data is needed. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us." We can do this. Let me talk to a committee and add us some parkland. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. And I see his hand up, but I'll just, in order to move the meeting along, please attend our Parks Committee meetings. We have a great active chair of that committee, so please do attend that to bring some of these ideas to discussion. Thank you. All right, Jesus, do we have anybody else?
That concludes our speakers.
All right, thank you. And thank you to all of our public speakers. And again, I encourage all of you to attend our committee meetings where a lot of these discussions that you have mentioned take place and where a lot of these actions get debated as well. So please attend the specific committee meeting based on the focus points that you brought up. All right, we'll now move on to the adoption of the previous meeting's full board minutes. The minutes from the March 10th full board meeting were distributed to board members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. So board members, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the minutes from the March 10th full board meeting are adopted and they will soon be available on the CB6 website. So I'll now move on to the chair's report. And I would actually like to begin on a serious note. We actually heard a little bit about it earlier tonight, but I just want to quickly discuss the increase in anti-Asian attacks that we have been witnessing throughout the city and throughout the country. As many of you know, we are a district of, we are a global district, and we're home to the United Nations, world headquarters of major corporations, world recognized hospitals, and leading academic institutions. And our constituency really represents this diversity, and it is critical to our identity and values. So our board has always stood in solidarity with all marginalized groups, and now we offer our love and support to the Asian community who's really suffering. And so we are here to help in any way we can, from prevention of such criminal activity to supporting victims. And while we are a global district, we're also a local family that steps up for our neighbors, particularly in moments of crisis. And another layer of these despicable hate crimes that I've been observing has been the inaction of fellow New Yorkers. So I want to call on each of us on this board and members of the public to intervene in the safest way possible. So whether that's calling the police, recording the incident, if you're comfortable to step up and actually prevent some of these attacks. But most of all, please provide a lending hand of comfort to victims, never be a bystander. And that's one of the things that I've been observing. And I know that we are all committed to making our communities the safest and most welcoming places. So moving on March 30th, CB6, in partnership with community boards 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, conducted a community conversation on the plight of small businesses, which I actually moderated. We had a wonderful panel that included the Manhattan Borough President, former Deputy Borough President Rose Pierre-Lewis, former City Council member Jessica Lappin, President of Manhattan Chamber of Commerce Jessica Walker, as well as small businesses from our district and others. And the program, I'm pleased to report, was very well attended and well received, and we will continue to partner with other community boards on such programs and other partnerships to amplify our local issues. And then I would also like to mention the Borough President's Training Series. Many of you have sent me emails about how beneficial they have been to you. So I really encourage everybody to sign up and attend online. This is helpful not just for our newer members, but for our more experienced members as well. So please do take a look at the catalog and sign up as you wish. And then last but not least, at this point, almost everyone should be eligible for their vaccine. So if you are having any difficulties, please reach out to our office and we will try to help you as best as we can to navigate that process. And so that's all I have for my report. And we'll now move on to the district manager, Jesus Perez.
Thank you, Kyle. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep my remarks brief. For several months now, we've been updating the community on the Department of Homeless Services plans to open a shelter for homeless families at 118 East 40th Street near Lexington Avenue, the site of the old Renwick Hotel. The shelter was to have opened by the end of 2020, but it encountered many delays. CB6 also raised some concerns with the Department of Homeless Services over their inadequate public outreach on this project. In the end, the Department of Homeless Services has informed us that the plans to open the shelter at this site will not be moving forward. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Jesus. We'll now move on to the board treasurer, Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Thank you very much. My report for this month is that our OMB's budget summary report delivered to our board from April 1st shows that our personal services budget for the year has been adjusted to $202,540. We have a balance of $62,303 with $140,236 spent or obligated. These numbers have no further pending adjustments to our yearly budget and are now the basis of the rest of the year's expected liquidated and remaining funds. As I mentioned earlier, the city communicated to us that there would be a budget cut in this category, essentially taking some money out of it that was originally designated to us that would no longer be available for us to spend. However, this is no longer a concern of ours because they've already taken the money. It actually covers part of next year's money too. So we won't have a budget reduction next year. And also we didn't need the money for this year anyway, so we'll be okay. The current budget for other than personal services, excluding our rent, is $154,659. This figure contains $110,185 of our retained street fair money, and our remaining OTPS budget is $44,474. We have a balance of $10,514 with $33,960 spent or obligated. Finally, we have a rent budget of $162,935, and it has already been used to pay our rent obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions for me?
All right, seeing no questions, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we're joined by the Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I'll be very quick. I have just a couple of things. First of all, as you know, 3 o'clock, I know some of you have been on Tuesdays. We've been trying to do Manhattan discussions, and we do sometimes on the vaccine and then sometimes on the reopening or the opening of Manhattan, New York City. This coming Tuesday, we have the czar, so to speak, the woman who was in charge for the mayor, Ms. Grillo. She's been head, as you know, of other agencies. She's very good. I am very worried about all this money that is coming into our neighborhoods. I keep mentioning it, but we are going to see great city money, state money, and federal money. And I just got off a call in Washington Heights where the schools are excited because Robert Jackson is the senator, and he's the one that got the what they call foundation aid, which is for the public schools. You're going to have that money plus a lot of federal money. And so Ms. Grillo Lorraine Grillo will be with us on Tuesday. You're welcome to join us, but just in general, I assume, because you have such a great board, that you're thinking about, how that money should be spent in Board 6. Some cases it's just a year, and sometimes it only goes until September, and hopefully will be extended. So without getting into all the specifics, you name it, and that funding is somehow going to work its way down. So I want to bring that to your attention. And in terms of vaccinations, we had one Tuesday. We'll have another one a week from next Tuesday. But just to give you an example of some of the challenges with the homebound. Now we know the challenge of the Johnson & Johnson because we've all read about it. That was the type of vaccine that was going to the seniors. But this is what's frustrating. There are caseworkers, there are nonprofits, actually 23 nonprofits that deliver in the city of New York weekdays, and then Meals on Wheels on the weekend. And it's around, 23, maybe 24,000 seniors. But the city is having each senior, I don't know about you, but I've gotten calls, call 311, fill out a form, it gets evaluated by somebody, and then the fire department, to their credit, shows up and gives the senior the shot. But it says fully homebound. Nobody knows what that is, so they're all calling 311. Why not give the project to the nonprofits that have been working with these seniors for decades? So those kinds of things are what we talk about. Sometimes the city listens, but those are the kinds of challenges that we're trying to work out at this 3 o'clock on Tuesday phone call. And you're certainly welcome to work with us. I think I mentioned, Kyle, I know this sounds weird, but the units of appropriation, because I'm all focused on money, and something for you to think about, because as we look at next year's budget, even this year, how do you tell what is going into a budget? And the only way to do that is to figure out exactly in that. Sometimes it'll say $10 million and it'll just say other. Well, we need to have some kind of discussion about exactly what is that $10 million in that. So one way to do that is to mandate that the mayor and the office of manager and budget divide up the budget so it has in it a unit of appropriation, something to think about. The other complaint I am getting all day long are these poor schools, and you have a lot of schools in District 6 that cannot get an outdoor graduation space. I think the Parks Department must have sent out a lot of letters today saying, no, 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 you have too many students, or you can only have just your students and no parents. Who the hell's going to go to a graduation all by themselves? Nobody's going to go. So it's unfortunate and frustrating to me because in some cases, people are stating, no, I'm the first one in my, literally my family to graduate high school. And I sure would like to see my parents have me walk down the, get my diploma. So I think you might want to look to see if there are schools that have this issue, how you can advocate for them. We're doing the same. You may have some other suggestions. At a meeting just tonight, school got told, no, you can't do it at this location outdoors because you have too many parents and too many students, even though it looked like they're okay place to the principal. But then somebody suggested another space right in the neighborhood that school had not thought of. There's an open space. So what I'm trying to say is we're all trying, between the small businesses, the schools, and every other institution that has problems, trying to figure out how we can be helpful in this pandemic and trying to get help in different ways. And you have the sense of the district, which sometimes others do not. So those are just some of the things. We're working on many different fronts, but I appreciate the time. We have a lot of reports. I think they're all on our website that we've done. The one that is of great interest, I think, is the religious institutions, because we don't want them to be destroyed, I have to tell you. And if they are getting sold to a developer, we have a whole year's worth of work that we put together so that they know what to do if a developer comes along. Hopefully a developer does not, because I don't like these buildings to be torn down. These are the non-landmark, but some folks don't take it. They hire the local parishioner who happens to be an attorney, knows nothing about land use, and before you know it, they're in trouble. So that's an example. We're all working on small business. We're waiting for the data from the Department of Finance, which was supposed to have already given us how many vacancies in the 5 boroughs, what's the square footage of the vacancy in my borough for the storefront, and what was the last rent. So we're waiting for that data from the Department of Finance. It's already a couple of months late. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And
Thank you. And we actually have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Kevin O'Keefe, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kyle. Borough President Brewer, I must say I found refreshing your comments in support of the Central Park Conservancy proposal to manage Woolman Rink. It appears that the Conservancy has committed, what, $50 million to operate the rink, with the proceeds to be invested in the park, and I guess for such programs as free skating days.
Yep.
I believe the Conservancy has a commitment not to commercialize a place with for-profit branding, also nice.
Yes.
What is the potential for such a deal? And maybe more importantly, although it's outside the district, what can we as Manhattan residents do who believe in this direction?
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I don't think it hurts. I mean, resolutions are helpful, depending on how you can do a letter. Right now, as we speak, I put a lot of fuss into this. So we got the Wall Street Journal today, the Daily News. We've done a couple of other television. We got more stories coming. So they're feeling, the city, I hope, is feeling the pressure. I actually know, but I'm not supposed to, who some of the other people who are applying are. And I'm like, oh God, I mean, if you think Trump's bad, you should see some of these other ones. So I'm hoping that this kind of pressure helps. Just, I would say letters and resolutions, if you can, with that kind of support to the mayor. It's I don't know if it's Parks Department that's doing this or the mayor or something in between. Makes no sense to have anybody but the Central Park Conservancy on any level. But thank you so much for asking that question.
Absolutely. We'll do what we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We now have Marty Barrett. Marty, you have the floor.
Madam President, an annual April question. When will the appointments come out?
I believe May. Brian Lafferty's on. Is that correct? I think May.
Correct. We anticipate we'll make the appointments in May.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And I see no further questions. So thank you so much, Borough President, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we've now arrived at our committee reports and resolutions. And in order to conduct an efficient meeting, I want to reiterate the few ground rules that we discussed before. So first, no one may speak until granted the floor. Board members, if you have a question or wish to make a motion or to make any comment, please raise your hand through Zoom first. The chat function should not be used for board business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a board member is given the floor to speak, I, as the chair, will identify you. To the members of the public, please note that during this session of the meeting, we only entertain questions from members of the board. And then last but not least, we are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of this meeting. So please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So we are again using a digital ballot for tonight. The CB6 staff will post a link to the ballot in the chat. Please open this ballot, select your name from the list of board members, and select your vote for each resolution as it is presented. Do not hit submit until later in the meeting after the final resolution has been presented. At the end of the meeting, once you have indicated all of your votes on the ballot, only then should you submit your ballot. You will not be able to submit the ballot unless you vote on every resolution. If you plan on abstaining, please select abstain. Final vote counts will be announced after the second roll call, so please stick around for that. Do not leave. If any part of our voting procedure is unclear, please raise your hand through Zoom and we will address your question. All right, seeing no questions, let's move on to our first committee, Land Use and Waterfront. Adam, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be brief this evening. First off, thank you to Ann Seligman for asking Congresswoman Maloney about funding the U&E gap. Hopefully some good comes of that. And I think it would do this committee and this district a lot of good. So in our meeting last month, we discussed, or we had a continued discussion about Project Area 2 of the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, and we got updates. We received updates from Solar One, and in short, they brought to us a list of concerns and complaints and items that long and short is that they're looking for replacement space that they can work in during the construction period. They've been having ongoing meetings with the ESCR team, and there's still some distance for them to sort of come to a resolution. Solar One will be has purchased out of their own pocket trailer space and some other materials to sort of supplement their current space while construction is going on, pile driving, etc. So they can upkeep the park, which we all use as residents of the district. We penned a letter urging both parties to come to a swift resolution that can accommodate Solar One and to make sure that they continue to do the good work that they do in the project during construction. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you so much, Adam. Are there any questions from board members from Adam? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
Now move on to Claire for business affairs and licensing.
Thank you, Kyle. Good evening, everyone. We had 3 groups come forth to us last month, Alibaba, Shakespeare, and Trionas. There was no objections to any of these, but if anyone has a specific question, I am here.
Brian, you have the floor.
Motion to bundle.
Second.
All right, seconded by Jean. All right, so we will go to a vote. So please go to your digital ballot for this resolution and do not hit submit. Those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. And as people do that, Claire, feel free to begin your report.
Sure, yeah, not much else to add, except there was an announcement today that bars and restaurants will be allowed to stay open until midnight, starting on Monday. So just putting that out there for you all. And then at our next meeting, Kyle's going to give a little bit of a summary of the Plight of Small Business panel that he mentioned during his report. So I would encourage folks to join us. And that's all from me. So thanks. Good to see everyone.
For you, Claire, from Lou. Lou, you have the floor.
I just want to find out what the digital ballot is. It's not showing up on my screen.
No problem. Lou, so it's in the chat box. So please click the chat icon on your Zoom and there should be a link in there. If you're unable to click on it, copy and paste it and put it into your browser. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Claire. And Lou, if you're continuing to have problems, one of our board staff will help you, Jesus or Brenda. All right. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to public safety. Matt Roberts, you have the floor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have two resolutions tonight, both of which pertain to police reform. Are there any questions?
All right, I see we have one question from Brian Van Nieuwenhoven. Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to speak about 3A, which I reviewed before the meeting. I appreciate the resolution that was provided. I appreciate the work that the committee has done on this. I appreciate the work that Chair Matt Roberts has done. It's really commendable, the service that you put forth for this. I think that the topic area of this proposal that's covered in the resolution is something that is of interest to the community and something that we should talk about a lot more. I am voting against 3A because of the details detailed in the whereas sections of this resolution that indicate that this was foisted upon us without sufficient community review or feedback. And although we want to see improvements in the topic areas contained by these recommendations, ultimately this is a poisoned process. I think it would be relevant for us to address shortcomings in reports like this so that we could get out in front of things that might be leading the community in the wrong direction. However, I don't think it's conscionable for us to take a process like this and lend our support to it explicitly if we were not consulted on the ideas in this reform and reinvention collaborative. And I feel like a lot of people in the community have a very strong interest in putting forth more on something like this and not taking a 200-page dump from the city in something that we don't have enough time to review before being asked to vote on it quickly.
All right, thank you, Brian. Matt, do you want to respond to that or do you want to take other questions?
We could take some other questions, but I will say that, I mean, it speaks to the timing and the, I mean, Brian's points are certainly well taken, but I think the issue here is the city had to meet a state deadline, and it was unclear. The community engagement process that preceded that release was unclear to many members of the community. There were certain meetings that were held. Some people knew about them. Some people were invited. So the outreach was not exactly sufficient. So that's where that comes from.
I understand that. As a former chair of the budget committee, we had similar feedback issues with that part of the, the district needs process at times.
All right, thank you, Brian. Let's move on to Andrew Gross. You have the floor.
Thanks so much. So I wrote this resolution and was coordinating with Matt. I just want to clarify. I think the comment was very valid that was made, but the reason why this resolution is written the way it is, if you note, it says supporting the mission. It doesn't say supporting the. And it says supporting the mission because what we're doing is we're supporting the general framework. If you read the text, it's the framework. It's the concept that we need to be reforming the police. The resolution strongly is worded that we were deeply disappointed that the NYPD and the city didn't give us that opportunity that was mentioned. But the alternative is for us to just be silent on this issue. And I don't think anybody wants to be silent on this issue. So what Matt and I believed, the way I wrote this, was to ensure that we are speaking out, that we believe in the tenets and the concepts that drive this, but we're also calling on the police and the city to make sure that the community board is included in these conversations. And if we don't pass this resolution, It means that we're basically giving an okay to the city having these conversations without us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next up, we have Marty Barrett. You have the floor, Marty.
My question is on 3B. So if it's not in order, I'll
So
withhold it.
Yeah, let's hold off on 3B. I'll get back to you when we go to 3B. Jim, you have the floor.
Yeah, on 3A, Robert, I'm wondering if there's any time sensitivity to this. I would like to go through the memorandum, perhaps go with a couple of other people, and each of us take 50 pages or so, just to get a better feel for it. And I'm also curious as to which agency made this document dump so late that there wasn't really time to review it. Was that the NYPD or was that somebody else?
So to answer that question, the document was released by the mayor's office in collaboration with other agencies,
okay,
including the NYPD.
Yeah. Do you have objection to referring the matter back to your committee, and we can take it up perhaps next month?
We can. I mean, we had a committee meeting on this. The public and the board all members of the public and the board were informed. And there was, we took the input that was provided in the meeting.
Did everybody? I mean, did anybody read the 213-page document?
Yeah, I mean, the committee had access to it, and we went through it as much as possible. But the text of this resolution does not reflect every item in there.
It's the mission. It's not the tactics.
Exactly.
Could you send me a copy of that document?
Can I, or are you?
Or the board office, whoever.
Yeah, we'll do it through the board office, Jim.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anne. Anne, you have the floor.
Yeah, I have to say, I really, as I read the whereases on this, I sort of expected it to be resolved that was not in support, or at least was going to be in support, but we feel it's important to have these things. I don't think somebody else's emergency is not yours. And I feel like, Brian, I cannot be in support of this because I don't think it's a good bill. And the fact that they didn't give us enough time to examine it is no reason for us to support it. So I'd also be kind of in favor of sending it back. And I mean, I would love to have this is what we think that it should be better in it, but I'm not comfortable just supporting it as written.
Let me give Andrew an opportunity to respond. I think he has his hand up in response.
Oh, thanks. I just want to clarify again. I actually agree with what Ann said, but I just want everyone to understand this resolution is not about the entire 200-page document, right? It's about the concepts of the document and the general purpose of the document. The document exists for, again, clarification, because there was an executive order signed by Governor Cuomo asking every single police department in the state of New York to issue one of these documents. So like Suffolk County, wherever, up everywhere is doing it. So the NYPD waited until the very end, but the concepts that are in there, the NYPD actually goes beyond what the governor asked for. It's about racial bias. It's about reforming the police. So we're not looking at the 200 pages word for word. And I don't know that it's Matt's decision if we're going to do that, but we're looking at the concepts behind it. And that's
right. And I think
most important.
I think, we're struggling with this with the comprehensive planning framework reso as well, because it's like, yes, we're all in favor of the stated aims, but, and my concern here remains if we say, yeah, we believe this, and I think you've worded it really well in terms of we support the fundamental tenets, but I think it's just really easy for NYPD to say, great, CB6 supports this, because we don't even have a but there.
Yeah.
We don't even have something that says, but we don't, there are not mechanisms to achieve this mission. And that's part of what I'm struggling with.
All right, so a couple things. So just so everybody understands, this document is the beginning of a process. This is not a bill. This is not a law. This is not anything that's being signed into law. It's simply a document that elaborates on things that need to be reformed. Now, again, we use reform in many different ways, but think of it, the same kind of conversations are happening all across America, in the corporate world, in the public sector, private sector, you name it. This is simply a statement that everybody, policing today is not, we need to move forward. The policing of tomorrow is not where we were yesterday. So I don't want to get too caught up in the specifics. I see a lot of hands up. We can have additional committee conversations, but there was, I did not see any board members attend the committee meeting other than the committee members.
All right, let's move to Anju. Anju, you have the floor.
Yeah, and I'll keep it brief. Firstly, I do want to apologize because I didn't attend the committee meeting, so you're right on to say that. But I will say, reading through this resolution and reading through the Reform and Reinvention Collaborative that's posted on the NYPD site, reform is important and is definitely a step. I wouldn't feel comfortable supporting anything that doesn't also have very clearly stated that divestment is also an important piece to all of this, and reinvesting funding into community resources and mental health resources as well. That's kind of my two piece. If there is another committee meeting to review this resolution, I would call on our resolution that we would pass to move a step forward and have an amendment that adds on to what this Reform and Reinvention Collaborative states as well, and calls on the police to do more, and that not just the police, but also the city to reinvest into the resources where the police don't have the training or the skill sets to deal with like mental health or substance use disorder crises. So yeah, my 2 cents there. I would love to be part of that committee meeting, so I'll definitely keep a lookout for that if we're going to move forward. But thank you.
All right, thank you. Jean, I see your hand up.
You're muted.
I am. I hope I'm unmuted now. I just wanted to ask Matt and Andrew if it was possible to add a clause to the reso that would cover the objections, because the objections seem to be pretty far into the weeds in a lot of ways, but I understand where they're coming from. So would it be possible to add a clause like Ann said, but this, that would showcase that in fact CB6 is supportive of the idea of this, supportive of the general directions it's going to, but has reservations about some of the specifics? Would that be a possibility you guys could entertain?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to any and all suggestions from the board. But again, if we go back to committee on this, I need a commitment from the board that the board members who are interested are actually going to attend and provide feedback.
No, I understand that. I was asking if it would be possible now to come up with a language.
I think you're talking about a friendly amendment, right?
Yes.
Are you proposing an amendment?
Yeah.
A friendly amendment, yes.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for language, Jean?
No, I don't.
Second.
That's why I was leaving it to them, because they're really deep in this, and I've only read the reso, so I don't have enough knowledge to suggest the language. But just something along the lines of a clause that begins with but and suggests that we're not fully approving of everything in this. We're approving the general, as Andrew and Matt both said, we're approving the general direction. We're approving the fact that this is needed. But we want to see more specifics shaken out in different directions, something like that. You guys know the stuff, so you can word it way better than me.
It needs to be second for it to be discussed.
Well, I mean, so do we have a proposal? So do we need a second?
So Jean, yeah, mentioned a friendly amendment. Is that seconded by anyone? Jim, is your hand up? Oh.
If it's considered a friendly amendment, I don't believe it requires a second. That said, I was going to move to refer the matter back to the committee and have myself and other people that might be interested in this do kind of a Cliff Notes version of the 213-page document so that board members can make an informed choice.
Second.
Second what?
Your proposal. Go back to committee.
Okay, well, that would be out of order. We have to deal with Jean's matter
one
first.
thing at a time, guys.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Right.
Okay, so Jean has made a friendly amendment. Matt and Andrew, are you?
I'll second Jean's friendly amendment.
So it was unclear, do we need a second? Or
No, you don't need
You don't
you don't need a second on a friendly amendment.
No, Andrew.
There's no such thing as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I knew Rick would
What you need is some language. If you can come up with a clause or a phrase now to plug in there, that's all I was asking. If it's not possible to do, then it's not possible. But that was my suggestion.
Well, if a board member would like to make an amendment, I think this is more than a friendly amendment. A friendly amendment is, some language tweaks, but I think you're proposing that we add a piece to the resolution. So if you'd like to make that proposal, and if it's seconded, that we can move forward.
Well, I don't have the language, so I can't do it.
I took notes on what Jean said, so if someone seconds it, I can draft it and add it based on what Jean's concept was.
So we can't second it because we don't know what the amendment is yet. We just know that there is an amendment that someone would like to make, but we don't know what that amendment is.
All the more reason to refer it back to committee.
If Andrew has the language,
The language would read as, and Jean, please correct me if I get this wrong, would read as something like, whereas we approve of the direction of this document, but call upon the NYPD to see more specific details about its implementation.
Okay.
All right, what is the rush here? Like, why not refer it back? I just Googled the intro, and you don't have to read the 213 pages to get a sense of what is going on with this bill. Like,
And I think the issue, as Matt mentioned, was that there was ample public discussion on this, but if they referred back to committee, what would be the additional conversation that they already had? So I think that's why Matt said, if there's a commitment for everybody who's making comments on this to then show up to the committee meeting, that's something that he would consider. Am I getting that right, Matt?
When is the committee meeting?
The next meeting is, so obviously that agenda is set. So the next meeting would be the third Thursday in May.
So yeah, public safety would meet.
And keep in mind
that's the 20th of May.
Correct. And anything that would come through the committee would not come to the board until June at that point. So the initial plan was to take up the matter as soon as it was released, because obviously there's going to be further discussions over the next few months. This was not intended to be the last issue, the last time police reform was brought up through the committee. That is, a focus throughout the year. So this was just an initial statement. But it sounds like, the board members of the board have certain amendments. We're open to them. But again, I will reiterate that we barely had a quorum in the last meeting, and no additional
my problem with it, Matt, is that I don't know what's all in here. And until I'm kind of a granular guy. I like to see what's what. So if you can allow me the time, and hopefully with a couple of other people, so I don't have to plow through all 200 pages. If I could just go through it, like I say, just do a quick Cliff Notes version for the rest of the board and distribute it prior to your next meeting. I think that's probably, I think that's how a lot of members of the board might feel.
All right, we've got to move on. I think we have a few more hands, Kyle.
Yeah, so.
I had moved to refer.
Okay, so there was a motion to refer back to committee.
Second.
Marty is seconding that. So we'll now vote on that. So if everyone can, if you have your hand up, put it down so that we can do this. So Andrew and Marty as well, you put your hand down. Mark, I'll allow a comment if you have a comment. Okay.
He seems to be waving it off.
Okay, perfect. All right, so if you object to referring back to committee, please raise your hand. We'll do it that way. All right, we saw some votes coming in, so please make sure that you're raising your hand if you object to referring this back to committee. So meaning if you would like to take a vote on this tonight, please raise your hand. Jesus, could you do a count?
Kyle, I'm sorry. Could you, are you supposed to raise your hand if you do want to refer it or if you want to?
If you are objecting to refer back to committee, meaning you want to vote on it tonight, please raise your hand. So if you want to refer back to committee, you should keep your hand down. All right, we'll see hands coming in. So let's take a couple more seconds on this.
Would it be possible to speak on this? I mean, with respect to the vote to refer back or not?
No, so I want to cut off the conversation because I think Matt, the chair, and Andrew wrote it, said everything that needs to be said on it, and we are in the process of the vote anyway. All right, so Jesus, could you do just a quick tally? I don't think that
I'm doing a tally. Let me double check.
Yeah.
I have 15 hands up for people who want to vote on it tonight. We need 22 hands to prevail, so that means that it gets sent back to committee.
Okay, I'm also seeing 17 hands. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I counted 17.
My apologies.
I see 17 hands.
Well, that's me. I need to go back to elementary school, but we need 22 hands to prevail.
Okay, so it'll be referred back to committee.
For the ballot, so as not to mess it up, so that because it won't let you submit it if you don't vote on something. For this reso, just vote something and then we'll delete them after the fact.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on to 3B, Matt.
All right, 3B, this deals with Public Oversight of Surveillance Technology Act.
Can I just interrupt for a second? Can I get some other people that want to help break this resolution down?
Folks, again, the rules were clear here that members of the board must seek recognition through the proper channels.
All right, Jim, you have the floor.
I just was soliciting volunteers to go over the 213-page document and break it into something that we can all understand.
Yeah, so what we'll do is if you are interested in working with Jim on this, please email myself and the board staff and we'll do the connections as needed. Great, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
All right, Matt, please go ahead.
All right, so questions on 3B.
All right, so Marty, you had a question on 3B.
Yeah, who are they supposed to be reporting to? The surveillances and the technology. The resolution doesn't point out who is supposed to be getting these reports.
That I would have to double check. I'm actually not entitled to vote on this. So I don't know that I can really speak to contents of the resolution. I don't know.
So that would really be the crux of the resolution. Certainly, a lot of surveillance is based on a judge's order that the wiretapping or the technology can be put into place. Such information certainly isn't something that should be reported to the public. I don't quite understand where this information is going to.
So I mean, I can't, there's a limit to what I can speak to here. But based on what was reported to us, so the legislation has been passed and signed into law, but has not necessarily been implemented. And that's really where that's the thrust of the resolution.
Okay.
It's implementation of the bill that was already passed. So this has nothing to do with the passage of the bill. It speaks only to the implementation. And are there other questions?
Matt, I see a hand from Matt Bondi. Matt? Might be on mute.
Okay, yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm curious who voted against and why?
I think Andrew might want to step in. Are you okay with that, Matt?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Andrew, you have
I was a dissenting vote on this. Respectfully, again, I'm really outnumbered here. I dissented because I actually don't. I feel that a lot of the surveillance technology in New York by the government is highly sensitive and prevents terror attacks. And I didn't feel that it was good to. I suggested that the city should just have a FISA, which is like city council members can see the technology only, and I didn't feel comfortable with revealing secrets that could be seen or obtained by the public. That was my particular dissension. Again, I was in the minority in that, respectfully.
But I agree with you because according to the resolution, this report will have to be posted to the NYPD's website. And I have an issue with that. And so I'm going to be opposed to this too.
Thank you, Matt. Asia, I saw your hand up. Do you still have it up or? Yeah, Asia, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this. I will say to you that, and I hear Andrew's point about anti-terrorism activity, screening, but we do know that the NYPD has a history of surveilling communities unnecessarily, and it led to a lot of communities being really apprehensive of any government interactions at all. So I am in favor. I do think that more oversight needs to be made. I'm fine with looking at how that information is shared, but I do think there needs to be a little bit more public oversight of the surveillance that is being done because, the government is now surveilling us like most of our apps and everything else are, even more. So.
Thank you, Asia. Anju, you have the floor now.
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm in favor of this bill as well. So the STOP Act, and I can if it's I can post the link for more information on this act as well, because I think it's important to read like how this act came into being, and it is a result in part to the fact that facial recognition technology is incredibly biased to certain communities. You just don't have a lot of data on like certain racial minorities communities, and so you disproportionately end up identifying them, whether or not they're actually someone who is going to perpetrate like violent activities. It basically is an incredibly discriminatory tool, and there is no oversight over right now because NYPD has all the data. I'm in favor of the SOP Act and us like supporting it as a resolution. If it's appropriate, I can post a summary of it as well in the chat that I think would be useful to look at for members.
Yeah, and please send it to panelists and attendees if you're posting something in the chat box. Thank you.
I just need to clarify that because I don't know what type of information they'll be posting, I have to be opposed to this.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. It's noted. Adam, you have the floor.
If there are no more comments, call the question.
B, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the resolution and I do agree there's some confusion because it does talk about the Inspector General for the NYPD shall audit the surveillance report and use policy to ensure compliance. So I am very unclear from it, and I apologize, I certainly haven't read the law, but I am unclear if it's involving the Inspector General. It doesn't mean that it's public. It can be an internal report that's there. So I think to me, the crucial information would be, what are we talking about? How transparent is it? And is it the protection of grand juries and other judicial aspects that actually gets revised and kept within the Inspector General and the community? So I don't know if there's clarity on that.
All right, thank you, B. John?
Yeah, can I second the call when the question's been called? I would second that if that's allowed at this point.
Okay, I don't see any other new hands up. We'll call to question. So is there a motion? John, is your hand up again? Or, okay. Is there a motion on this 3B?
Second.
We first need a motion before we need a second. So does anyone have a motion on this?
That's what I meant.
Oh, so what is your motion, Ronnie?
Call the question.
Right. We already did that. Jean, I see your hand up.
Motion is to move forward with this resolution.
Yeah, I can't make the resolution. Call the question to make the resolution.
Right. Yeah. So there's a motion of no objection from Jean. Is that seconded by anyone?
Seconded. Second.
All right, seconded by Raj. So let's go back to our digital ballots. Please mark your vote on this digital ballot for resolution 3B and do not hit submit. Those of you who are not using digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. All right, and so as people are doing that, Matt, do you have a report?
So just a brief update. So I will put an article about the Post Act that was referred to the board office, myself in the chat for people. I just can't, there's a limit to how much I can speak to it because I have to remain objective here. So unfortunately, I really can't answer everybody's questions, but I just put out a chat article that may explain some of the questions as far as the Inspector General and what kinds of information you know. As far as committee reports, tomorrow's meeting is a presentation from the Office of Emergency Management on emergency preparedness. And then based on the feedback from the board, we will revisit the police reform initiative in May. That'll be the 20th of May, not tomorrow's meeting, since we have to inform the public ahead of time. So that's all I have. It's been a long night, past 9 o'clock, so I think we should move on.
All right, thank you, Matt. All right, I'm seeing no further questions for you, so thank you. All right, let's move on to housing and homelessness. Rich, you have the floor.
I'm here. So I only have two things to say. One is that, as Jesus already noted, the proposal for adult homeless family housing in the former Renwick Hotel is not going to go forward due to issues with the building owner. So DHS is going to be looking for a new site for that use in community.
Thank you.
Did you say in Community Board 6?
Next week, I believe, to discuss the zoning application of a combined homeless shelter supportive housing construction project that we've already been briefed on. And anyone who is interested in that is welcome to attend.
All right. Thank you so much, Rich. Are there any questions for Rich? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Rich. Next up, we have transportation. Gene.
Hi there. There. Oh. There, now I'm on camera. Okay. Real fast. No resos, a very brief report. I want to second Ann, Adam, and other folks about the EGAP. We really need to close that. Now's the time. With Congress and President Biden, we should be able to get the money to do that. Other updates, ESCR, our quest to fix the bike lane workaround and detour for pedestrians and bikers has proved utterly fruitless. They have stonewalled us for months now, and the final stonewalling at the last meeting. So we're going to have to look at other ways to try to rouse them and get their attention, I think. 20th Street is going to be between First Avenue and Avenue C, the design is going to be slightly tweaked. They did it in a big hurry the last time. You may remember it had to do with the L train shutdown. So they're actually tweaking some of the overlarge striped areas to allow people to have more space with vehicles and with bikes. So that should work out actually for the better. And next month's meeting, we'll be looking at Sam Schwartz's designs for 3rd Avenue and proposal to activate part of the open street on Irving Place. Those are informational only. There'll be no resolutions required. People will be allowed to have comments on the stuff, and that'll be it. So that's what I got.
All right. Thank you very much, Gene. Are there any questions for the Transportation Committee? All right. Seeing none, let's move on to Health and Human Services. Elvie, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Last week, we had Dr. Paul Testa, the Chief Medical Information Officer at NYU Langone Health, and gave a comprehensive presentation on telehealth and telemedicine. And I would like to make an announcement just in case you haven't heard about the information. The New York City Vaccine Hub started a pilot walk-in programs at 11 sites. New Yorkers age 75 and older will have access to 100 walk-in slots at each of the 11 sites. Each person 75 older may be accompanied by one person, and that person may also be vaccinated using one of the walk-in slots if they meet the current eligibility criteria. Walk-ins are anytime between 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. from Thursday to Sunday. There are 11 sites in New York City, and we have 2 sites in Manhattan at Essex Crossing at 224 Broome Street and at City College at 1549 Amsterdam Avenue. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvie. Are there any questions for Elvie from board members? All right, seeing none, let's move on to Environment and Parks.
Thanks, Kyle. Environment and Park Committee's first meeting since the previous full board meeting will actually be next month. So without an April meeting, I'll waive the report, but with April 22nd, only 8 days away, wishing a meaningful Earth Day to all.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Yes. All right, next up, we have Budget and Governmental Affairs. Rick Eggers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kyle. We have one resolution on supporting improvements for voter services. This is by no means an all-inclusive list. It's just a few items that the committee felt were worth supporting at this time and would like to get the attention of the appropriate parties to get them resolved. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
All right, so are there any questions for Rick on 8A? All right, seeing none, is there a motion from anyone on the board?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Who made the original, just for our minutes?
Letty.
Letty, and that was seconded by who?
Marty.
And Marty, thank you. All right, so please, let's go back to our digital ballots and mark your vote on your digital ballot for 8A. And once you have done that, you can now hit submit. And so for those of you who are not using your digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. And so as people complete that, Rick, do you have a committee report?
Just real quickly, one of the other topics we talked about was the survey that was operated through the district office about how to conduct meetings in the future after perhaps the limitations that we're now working under are lifted. Not surprisingly, the results showed that people favor a hybrid approach where you could attend a meeting in person or call in with a Zoom connection. This poses some technical difficulties, but it's something that we really don't have to deal with right now because we're operating under an executive order that extends this procedure we're following now on a month-by-month basis. We're going to be revisiting this issue as we get some greater clarity about what other entities within the government are considering. It would be helpful to change the whole way that the open meeting law operates in light of what we've learned during this pandemic. And there's some positives about every approach and some negatives about every approach. So we'll be looking at it again, probably not until the fall, but there's still plenty of time for us to do that. And then the other item that was on our agenda that we're going to push to next week, we'll be getting back to some budget issues. I'll be in contact with some of the council members' offices so that we can work together to get some of the budget items that were not funded by the city, but could be funded through money available to the council members. And we can work together. I was very pleased to hear from Katie from Carlina's office that there's some money that's coming for senior centers. That's been an issue that's been on our plate, well, long before I got on the board, which has been almost 14 years now. We've been wanting to have another senior center. I think we have to find out how to reimagine senior centers under current conditions. And hopefully we'll be able to work with Carlina's office together to find the best solution that's good for the community. So we'll be doing that next month. There'll be more you'll see the agenda going forward.
Thank you so much, Rick. Appreciate that. All right, next up, we have youth and education. John, you have the floor.
Yeah, hi, I'll be brief. First of all, we're very excited, thanks to the hard work of Brendan and of the collaboration of Kyle to announce that Community Board 6 will be co-hosting a town hall on re-envisioning reopening schools, and we'll be doing that with the superintendent of District 2, Kelly McGuire, and very gratefully with Marisol Rosales, the executive superintendent of all schools across Manhattan. And so Kelly and Marisol will work with us. We'll be doing that on the same date as our regular meeting, April 27th. However, we will be doing it at a different time to accommodate various schedules from 5:30 to 7. And in order to make the town hall work smoothly, we will not be formally having a committee meeting on April 27th, but using the same time and same date and approximate time. The other thing that we're going to be doing on May 3rd is we will be co-hosting with the Community Board 2, the Community Education Council for District 2, and a variety of other community boards across the city, a town hall discussion on dyslexia. That will be at 6:30 in the evening. Both of those are in the notes. The purpose of the community board of the first meeting is to give District 6 schools a unique chance to be heard. And so the whole focus of that meeting will be on District 6 schools. Very quickly, Borough President Brewer referenced foundation aid. The biggest, to me at least, as someone who's been an advocate for our schools for many years, the addition of the $4.2 billion that has been withheld from public schools for the last, since 2007, and which has been the subject of lawsuits, is now going to be funneled to the schools. Someone was asking, where is the money going? That foundation aid money goes directly into fair student funding, which goes directly to the schools and directly to the students. The only other thing I'd like to take up tonight is we would like to work with Ben Kalos on finding locations for 3Ks, and that could be a joint effort of a couple of our committees. And finally, I've been at 2 meetings in the last two days on trying to get outdoor graduation sites. And if anybody has any splendid insights into that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. That's my report.
All right, thank you, John. And I want to give you special thanks for coordinating all of these town halls with the executive superintendent, which is a miraculous thing that she's giving us time. So thank you for your advocacy efforts on that, as well as for the co-sponsorship with CB2. For all of those who are interested, the URL to sign up is in the chat function. It was also sent out in our Wednesday emails, and you will be seeing some more outreach on that. So please do share it. And as John mentioned, this is a very unique opportunity for parents and educators and students to express their specific needs to leadership. So please send wide and far. All right, thank you very much, John. Moving on, we'll move to strategic community planning. Kavitha, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm clear.
John, you're still audible. Thank you.
Okay.
I have
thank
2
you,
kids
Kyle.
behind me, sorry.
I'll keep it really short as well tonight. Just a quick recap of last month. We looked into ongoing community engagement around the MSBI site. We are working on reimagining our survey a little bit. Hopefully have that somewhat ready by our next meeting. And we are hoping to have 1 or 2 outdoor in-person tabling events in the spring, if we can manage to coordinate those to get some more community feedback around the MSBI site. We also really dove into Intro 2186, the comprehensive planning framework proposed by City Council Speaker Johnson. And I do encourage folks to come to our next meeting on May 6th, because we'll be really doing a deep dive into that resolution, and similarly to the public safety discussion tonight, I feel like there's some complicated issues there in terms of being in support of the intent, not necessarily in support fully of the way that it's framed out. So to avoid any kind of confusion at full board, where we hope to bring this in May, please, I invite you guys to attend our next meeting. And I just wanted to also express the excitement around that senior center budget info that was shared by Katie Loeb. So I'm mentioning that there'll be an RFP, and keeping that in mind as we look for opportunities in our district. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So that concludes our committee reports and resolutions. Before we move on, I just want to build on what Kavitha just said, actually, which is to encourage everybody on the board, as well as our public attendees, to attend our committee meetings. The full board is actually not the place where we should be doing committee business. So if you're interested in the nuts and bolts, if you're interested in bringing up specific topics, please do attend the committee meetings. This is where all of that work gets done. So I highly encourage people to do that. Our meetings are available online. You can see the calendar of events for the following month, our agendas, and register on our website. So I, again, encourage everybody to do that, whether you're on the board or you're a public member. Please check out the agendas for all of our committees, because there might be something you're interested in and would like to spend more time discussing the nuts and bolts. So please do that. So now we're moving on to old or new business. Board members, if you have any old or new business to state, please raise your hand through Zoom. And Andrew, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Kyle, I just want to actually reiterate what you said in that the Public Safety Committee, I'm sure, Matt comment further as a chair, but we're going to be speaking a whole lot more about police reform, about all these like really hot issues that are in public. And so I would just encourage everyone who spoke out tonight, who seems extremely, extremely interested in policing and all of these issues in public safety, to come to that committee meeting that we have next. That way we don't have to have a huge debate and we can save lots of time in the board. So again, we're going to keep having these debates. It's really, really popular right now. So come on by.
Thank you. I think you sold that really well, Andrew. Appreciate it. All right. So I'll now turn it over to the Assistant Secretary to do our second roll call.
Okay, thank you. Bear with me for a second. Once again, answer present as your name is called. Kyle Athide is here. Asya Abadi?
Here.
Okay.
And Matt, if you're missing ballots, please let us know as well, so those members can submit their ballots.
Okay, I'll let you know in a sec. Neil Barkley?
Here.
Martin Barrett?
Present.
LV Barroso?
Present.
Joan Berenbaum?
Present.
Claire Brennan?
Present.
Jim Collins? Jim Collins? Daniel Devine?
Present, Jim Collins.
Okay, thank you.
Present.
Oh, no. Okay. Beatrice Disman?
Present.
Jean D'Onofrio? Richard Eggers?
Present.
Charles Fernandez?
Present.
Andrew Gross?
Present.
Adam Harkey?
Here.
Molly Hollister?
Here.
Paige Judge?
Present.
Yusuf Khalad? John Keller?
Present.
Abigail Cruzmark? Uh-oh. Okay. Anton Malner?
Present.
Sandra McKee?
Present.
Kavitha Matthew?
Here.
Wells Magali? Richard Mintz?
Here, present.
Philip Napolitano?
Present.
Rajesh Nayar?
Present.
Okay. Kevin O'Keefe?
Present with a question. So my hand is up. And I'm sorry if I missed this on 3A. How are we marking it, since that is that I hear right, that's being tabled?
Mark it however you want, and we'll make the correction tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Reshma Patel?
Present.
Matt Roberts?
Present.
Gene Santora? Frank Scala? All right. Lawrence Shayer?
Present.
And Ann Seligman?
Present.
Lou Sapersky?
Yo.
Sean Sherman?
Present.
Sandro Sherrod,
Present.
Susan Steinberg,
Present.
Letty Simon,
Present.
Anju Suresh,
Present.
Mark Thompson,
Present.
Corinne Vanderdonk, Brian Van Nieuwenhoven,
Present.
Ronnie White. Ronnie,
Present.
thank you. Claude,
Claude L. Winfield, present.
all right. Thank you, Claude. Okay, so let's see here. Anybody not submit their ballots? I think I'm going to have to rely on Jesus to tell us that because I'm still familiarizing myself with this Airtable. Jesus, can you take a look?
No problem. I can find the votes.
Thank you.
All right, for the BASA resolutions 2A, 2B, 2C, which were bundled, they all passed with 41 votes, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions, and 0 not entitled. Resolution 3A for public safety was, bless you, was referred back to committee. So that's that. Resolution 3B for public safety passes 23 in favor, 10 opposed, 7 abstentions, 1 not entitled. And 8A for budget and governmental affairs with 40 in favor, no opposed, 2 abstentions, no not entitled, also passes. So everything passes except for 3A, which was referred back to committee.
All right, thank you, Jesus. All right, so if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. I see no objections, so seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 9:23 p.m. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank
Good night,
you.